Marcus Thompson woke up every morning at 5:30 a.m., even on weekends. His alarm clock was old and loud, but he never needed it anymore. His body had gotten used to waking up early after years of the same routine. He would quietly get out of bed, trying not to wake up his little sister Keisha, who slept in the room next to his. Their small apartment had thin walls, and he knew how much she needed her sleep. After brushing his teeth and washing his face, Marcus would put on his workout clothes and head to the tiny living room. There, he would spend the next hour doing push-ups, sit-ups, and practicing the martial arts moves that Master Chen had taught him. The carpet was worn and old, but it was soft enough to exercise on. His mother had bought it from a thrift store 3 years ago, and it still smelled a little like the previous owner's cats. Marcus had been learning martial arts for 6 years now. It all started when he was 11 years old and came home from school with a black eye and torn clothes. 3 older boys had cornered him behind the cafeteria and taken his lunch money. When his father saw his bruised face, he didn't get angry or call the school. Instead, he drove Marcus to Master Chen's studio that same evening. "Son," his father had said as they sat in the parking lot, "I can't always be there to protect you, but I can make sure you learn to protect yourself and others who need help." Master Chen was a small, quiet man who spoke with a soft accent. He had immigrated from China 20 years earlier and opened his martial arts studio in their neighborhood. The studio was not fancy. The walls were painted white but had turned yellow over the years. The mirrors were cracked in some places, and the mats on the floor were patched with duct tape. But Master Chen was the real deal. He had been training in martial arts since he was 5 years old. "Martial arts is not about fighting," Master Chen told Marcus on his first day. "It is about discipline, respect, and protecting people who cannot protect themselves. If you want to learn how to hurt people, go somewhere else. If you want to learn how to be strong and wise, then you can stay here." Marcus stayed. Over the years, he learned not just how to punch and kick, but how to control his anger and think before he acted. Master Chen taught him that the strongest person in the room was often the one who chose not to fight. But he also taught him that sometimes when someone innocent was being hurt, fighting was the right thing to do. Now Marcus was 17 years old, and he looked different from the scared 11-year-old who had first walked into Master Chen's studio. He was still not very tall, but his body was lean and strong. His movements were quick and smooth like a cat. Other kids at school sometimes tried to start trouble with him, but something in his calm, confident way of walking made most bullies think twice. The most important person in Marcus's life was his 14-year-old sister Keisha. She was smart, funny, and had the biggest heart of anyone he knew. While Marcus was quiet and serious, Keisha was always laughing and making jokes. She got straight A's in school and talked constantly about becoming a doctor someday. She wanted to help sick children, she said, because she remembered what it felt like to be scared and helpless. Their father had left 2 years ago. One day he was there and the next day he was gone. He left a note saying he was sorry, but he couldn't handle the pressure of providing for the family anymore. Their mother, Linda, had cried for weeks. Then she got angry. Then she got 2 jobs. She worked at a diner during the day and cleaned office buildings at night. She was hardly ever home, but she made sure Marcus and Keisha had everything they needed. Marcus got a part-time job at the grocery store to help with money. He worked there every day after school, stocking shelves and helping customers carry their bags to their cars. The work was boring, but the manager, Mr. Rodriguez, was nice to him and let him take time off when he needed to go to martial arts practice. For the past 3 years, Marcus had walked Keisha to school every morning and picked her up every afternoon. Jefferson Middle School was only 6 blocks from their apartment, but their neighborhood could be dangerous. There were gangs, drug dealers, and other kids who might cause trouble for a young girl walking alone. But now that Marcus was working at the grocery store, he couldn't always be there when school ended. Keisha had to take the bus home by herself 3 days a week. She told him she was fine with it, that she was old enough to take care of herself. Marcus worried anyway. "I'm not a little kid anymore," Keisha had argued when Marcus first suggested she wait for him to pick her up. "I can handle riding the bus. Besides, you need that job. We need the money." She was right about the money. Their mother's 2 jobs barely paid for rent, food, and utilities. There was no money left over for new clothes or school supplies. Marcus's paycheck from the grocery store helped buy those things, but he still worried about his sister. Jefferson Middle School was different from the elementary school Keisha had attended. It was bigger, with more students from different backgrounds. Keisha was one of only 12 black students in a school of over 400 kids. Most of the other students were white, with some Hispanic and Asian kids mixed in. Keisha had always been good at making friends, but middle school was harder. The kids seemed meaner, more interested in being popular than being kind. Keisha tried to fit in. She was polite to everyone and kept her grades high. She joined the science club and volunteered to help teachers after school. But some of the older students had noticed her anyway. Not in a good way. Marcus didn't know about the problems yet. Keisha was good at hiding things when she didn't want to worry people. She had learned this skill from watching their mother, who always pretended everything was fine even when she was stressed about money or tired from working 2 jobs. But if Marcus had looked more carefully, he might have noticed that Keisha wasn't laughing as much as she used to. He might have seen that she was spending more time in her room and less time talking about her dreams of becoming a doctor. He might have noticed that she was jumping every time her phone buzzed with a text message, or that she was taking longer and longer to get ready for school each morning. The signs were there. Soon Marcus would learn that his little sister needed his protection more than ever, and when he did, all those years of training with Master Chen would finally be put to the test. Keisha first noticed them on a Tuesday morning during her second week of taking the bus alone. 3 older boys were sitting in the back seats, talking loudly and laughing at something on one of their phones. She didn't pay much attention at first. Middle school boys were always loud and annoying. Her friend Sarah had warned her about that. But then she heard one of them say something that made her stomach drop. He was talking about that new black girl and using words that made her face burn with embarrassment and anger. She kept her eyes straight ahead and pretended to read her science textbook, but she could feel them staring at her. When the bus stopped at Jefferson Middle School, she got off quickly and didn't look back. The leader of the group was Tyler Morrison. He was 16 years old, but still in 8th grade because he had failed twice. Tyler was big for his age, almost 6 feet tall with broad shoulders and hands that looked like they belonged on a grown man. His blonde hair was always messy, and he had a scar on his chin from falling off his bike when he was younger. But the most noticeable thing about Tyler was his eyes. They were cold and mean, like he enjoyed making other people feel bad. Tyler's best friends were Jake Collins and Connor Walsh. Jake was shorter than Tyler, but just as mean. He had red hair and freckles, and he always carried his phone so he could record the things they did to other kids. Connor was the follower of the group. He wasn't as smart or as brave as the other 2, but he laughed at their jokes and did whatever they told him to do. The 3 boys had been causing trouble at Jefferson Middle School for 2 years. They had been suspended multiple times for fighting, stealing lunch money, and bullying younger students. But somehow they always came back. Their parents would complain to the principal, or they would promise to behave better, and the school would give them another chance. Tyler had noticed Keisha on her first day of taking the bus. He saw a pretty quiet girl who seemed to be alone most of the time. In Tyler's twisted mind, that made her a perfect target. He liked picking on kids who couldn't fight back, especially if they were different from him in some way. On Wednesday, Tyler decided to make his move. He waited until Keisha was walking to her locker after first period, when the hallways were crowded with students changing classes. He walked up behind her and accidentally bumped into her shoulder hard enough to make her drop her books. "Oops, sorry," Tyler said with a fake smile. "Didn't see you there." Jake and Connor laughed like it was the funniest thing they had ever seen. Keisha bent down to pick up her books, her face red with embarrassment. Other students walked by, but nobody stopped to help her. They all knew who Tyler was, and they didn't want to become his next victim. "You should watch where you're going," Tyler said as Keisha gathered her things. "This school can be dangerous for people who don't pay attention." Keisha looked up at him, and Tyler saw the fear in her eyes. It made him smile even wider. He liked that fear. It made him feel powerful and important. The harassment got worse over the next few days. Tyler and his friends would find Keisha in the hallways between classes and make loud comments about her appearance. They would talk about her hair, her clothes, and her skin color, always loud enough for other students to hear but quiet enough that teachers walking by couldn't quite make out what they were saying. During lunch, they would sit at the table next to hers and make jokes that weren't really jokes. They would talk about how certain people didn't belong at their school, or how some kids should go back where they came from. Keisha tried to ignore them, but it was hard to eat when her stomach was twisted in knots. The worst part was that none of the other students would help her. She could see in their faces that some of them felt bad for her, but they were too scared of Tyler to say anything. A few teachers had noticed that something was wrong, but Tyler was smart about when and where he bothered her. He always made sure adults weren't close enough to hear the really bad things he said. Keisha started dreading school. She would lie in bed each morning, staring at the ceiling and wishing she could just stay home. But she knew her mother was working hard to pay for everything, and Marcus was doing his best to help. She didn't want to be a burden to her family by causing more problems. She tried to change her routine to avoid Tyler and his friends. She would take different routes through the hallways and eat lunch in the library instead of the cafeteria. But Jefferson Middle School wasn't that big, and Tyler always seemed to find her. The situation got much worse on Friday afternoon. Keisha was waiting at the bus stop after school when Tyler, Jake, and Connor approached her. There were other students around, but they quickly moved away when they saw the three boys coming. "Hey there, beautiful," Tyler said, standing too close to her. "We need to have a little talk." Keisha's heart started beating fast. She looked around for a teacher or another adult, but the bus stop was at the edge of the school property and most of the adults had already gone home for the weekend. "I don't want any trouble," Keisha said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. "Trouble?" Tyler laughed. "Who said anything about trouble? We just want to be friends." Jake had pulled out his phone and was pointing it at them. Connor was standing behind Keisha, blocking her way if she tried to walk away. Tyler started asking her questions that made her uncomfortable. He wanted to know where she lived, if she had a boyfriend, and what she did after school. When she didn't answer, he stepped even closer. "I'm talking to you," Tyler said, his voice getting harder. "It's rude not to answer when someone's trying to be nice." That's when he reached out and grabbed her arm. His grip was tight enough to hurt, and Keisha let out a small gasp of pain. "Let me go," she said, trying to pull away. "I'll let you go when I'm ready," Tyler replied. "First, you're going to listen to what I have to say." He leaned down close to her ear and whispered something that made Keisha's blood turn cold. It was a threat about what he and his friends wanted to do to her, and where they planned to corner her when she was completely alone. Just then, the bus arrived. Tyler let go of her arm and stepped back, smiling like nothing had happened. Keisha ran onto the bus and found a seat as far away from the back as possible. Her arm was already starting to bruise where Tyler had grabbed her. As the bus pulled away, she could see Tyler and his friends laughing and high-fiving each other. Jake was still recording with his phone. Keisha knew this was just the beginning. Tyler had made it clear that he wasn't going to leave her alone. That night, Keisha sat in her room and cried quietly into her pillow. She didn't know what to do. She was scared to tell Marcus because she knew he would want to get involved and that might make things worse. But she was also scared of what Tyler might do next time they caught her alone. She was trapped, and Tyler Morrison knew it. Marcus knew something was wrong with his sister. He had known Keisha her whole life, and he could read her moods better than anyone else in their family. She wasn't eating much dinner anymore, and she spent most of her time in her room with the door closed. When he knocked and asked if she wanted to watch TV together, she would make excuses about having too much homework. The biggest change was that Keisha had stopped talking about becoming a doctor. For years, she would tell Marcus about the interesting things she learned in science class or about the medical shows she watched on TV. But now, when he asked about school, she would just shrug and say it was fine. Marcus also noticed that Keisha's grades were slipping. Their mother had gotten a call from one of Keisha's teachers, asking if everything was okay at home. Keisha's science teacher said she seemed distracted in class and wasn't participating in discussions like she used to. Her math teacher reported that she had missed turning in 2 assignments, which was very unusual for her. On Monday morning, Marcus decided to walk Keisha to school, even though he was supposed to work at the grocery store. He told Mr. Rodriguez that he had a family emergency and would come in later. Mr. Rodriguez was understanding and told him to take care of whatever he needed to do. During the walk to Jefferson Middle School, Marcus tried to get Keisha to talk about what was bothering her, but she kept insisting that everything was fine. She seemed nervous, though, looking around constantly as if she was expecting something bad to happen. "Keisha, you know you can tell me anything, right?" Marcus said, as they reached the school entrance. "If someone is giving you trouble, I want to help." "I know, Marcus," Keisha replied, but she wouldn't look him in the eyes. "Really, everything is okay, you don't need to worry about me." But Marcus was worried. That afternoon, instead of going straight to work, he decided to wait near the school and watch what happened when classes ended. He positioned himself across the street from Jefferson Middle School, behind a big oak tree where he couldn't be easily seen. At 3:15 p.m., students started pouring out of the building. Marcus watched carefully, looking for his sister among the crowd. He saw her come out of the main entrance, walking quickly with her head down. She was alone, which wasn't unusual, but something about the way she was moving made Marcus pay closer attention. That's when he saw them. 3 older boys came out of the building about 30 seconds after Keisha. They were walking in the same direction she was, staying about 20 feet behind her. Marcus couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could see that they were talking to each other and pointing at his sister. The tallest boy had messy blonde hair and looked much older than the other middle school students. The red-haired boy next to him was holding up his phone like he was recording something. The third boy seemed younger and kept looking around nervously. Marcus followed at a distance, staying on the opposite side of the street. He watched as the 3 boys got closer to Keisha. She must have sensed them behind her because she started walking faster. But the boys sped up too, and soon they were right behind her. The blonde boy said something that made Keisha stop walking and turn around. Even from across the street, Marcus could see that she looked scared. The boy stepped closer to her, and Marcus saw his sister take a step backward. Marcus felt his hands clench into fists. Every instinct told him to run across the street and protect his sister. But Master Chen had taught him to observe and think before acting. He forced himself to stay hidden and keep watching. The confrontation only lasted about 2 minutes, but to Marcus it felt like hours. He saw the blonde boy grab Keisha's arm, saw her try to pull away, saw the fear on her face. When the city bus arrived and Keisha hurried onto it, Marcus felt a mixture of relief and rage. After the bus drove away, the 3 boys stood at the bus stop laughing and congratulating each other. The red-haired boy showed the others something on his phone screen, and they all laughed even harder. Then they walked away in the opposite direction. Marcus followed them, staying far enough back that they wouldn't notice him. He wanted to know who these boys were and where they lived. The blonde boy seemed to be the leader, and Marcus could tell just by watching him that he was used to getting his way through intimidation. The boys walked to a convenience store about 6 blocks from the school. Marcus watched from outside as they went in and bothered the elderly man behind the counter. They knocked over a display of chips and didn't help clean it up. When they came outside, the blonde boy was eating candy that Marcus was pretty sure he hadn't paid for. From the store, the boys walked to a small park where some other teenagers were hanging out. Marcus hid behind a maintenance building and listened to their conversation. That's when he learned the blonde boy's name was Tyler, the red-haired boy was Jake, and the quiet one was Connor. He also learned that this wasn't the first time they had targeted his sister. Tyler was talking about how much fun it was to mess with the new girl and how scared she looked when he grabbed her arm. Jake showed his phone to some of the other kids, and Marcus realized he had been recording the harassment. "She's so easy to scare," Tyler was saying. "Tomorrow I'm going to follow her home and see where she lives. Maybe pay her a little visit when her family's not around." That's when Marcus had heard enough. He felt the training from Master Chen kicking in, the way his teacher had taught him to control his anger and channel it into focus. These boys were not just bullying his sister, they were planning to escalate their harassment. Tyler was talking about going to their home, which meant their mother could be in danger too. Marcus spent the rest of the afternoon following the three boys from a distance. He learned their routines, where they liked to hang out, and what time they usually went home. Tyler lived in a nice house with a big yard about 10 minutes from the school. His parents' cars in the driveway were expensive and new. Jake lived in an apartment complex that looked a lot like Marcus and Keisha's building. Connor lived the furthest away, in a small house with toys scattered in the front yard. By the time Marcus got to work that evening, he had a plan forming in his mind. He knew he couldn't let this continue. These boys had already hurt his sister emotionally, and now they were threatening to make it physical. Tyler's comment about visiting their home was the final straw. That night, Marcus lay in bed thinking about what Master Chen had taught him over the years. His teacher always said that martial arts should be used to protect innocent people, never to start fights or get revenge. But what happened when the adults who were supposed to protect children weren't doing their job? What happened when bullies were allowed to hurt people because nobody was willing to stop them? Marcus knew that tomorrow he would have to make a choice. He could report what he had seen to the school administrators, but based on what he had observed, Tyler and his friends were good at avoiding consequences. Or he could take more direct action to protect his sister. As he drifted off to sleep, Marcus made his decision. Tomorrow, Tyler Morrison was going to learn that Keisha Thompson wasn't as alone as he thought she was. Marcus woke up early on Tuesday morning with a heavy feeling in his chest. He had barely slept, thinking about what Tyler had said about following Keisha home. He knew today would be the day everything changed. He got ready for school as usual, but instead of his regular clothes, he chose a plain black t-shirt and comfortable jeans that wouldn't restrict his movement if he needed to act quickly. At breakfast, Keisha looked even more tired than usual. She had dark circles under her eyes and kept checking her phone nervously. When their mother asked if she was feeling okay, Keisha just nodded and said she had stayed up late studying. But Marcus could see her hands shaking slightly as she tried to eat her cereal. "I can walk you to school today," Marcus offered, even though he knew his shift at the grocery store started early. "No, it's okay," Keisha said quickly. "You'll be late for work. I can handle the bus." Marcus wanted to argue, but he didn't want to make Keisha suspicious. Instead, he kissed her forehead and told her to have a good day. As she walked out the door, he saw her looking over her shoulder nervously, like she expected someone to jump out at her. Marcus called Mr. Rodriguez and told him he needed the whole day off for a family emergency. His boss wasn't happy about the short notice, but Marcus had been a good employee for 2 years, so Mr. Rodriguez agreed to cover his shift. At 2:45 p.m., Marcus positioned himself near Jefferson Middle School again. But this time, instead of hiding across the street, he found a spot closer to the building where he could see the area behind the school. During his investigation the day before, he had noticed that Tyler and his friends liked to hang out in that area after classes ended, away from the main entrance where teachers might see them. The final bell rang at 3:15 p.m., and students began streaming out of the building. Marcus watched the main entrance until he saw Keisha come out. She was walking fast, her backpack clutched tightly to her chest. She looked scared, constantly glancing around as if she expected someone to grab her. Marcus moved to follow her, but then he saw Tyler, Jake, and Connor coming out of a side exit. They were moving with purpose, and Marcus realized they had planned this. Instead of following Keisha directly, they were taking a route that would let them intercept her before she reached the bus stop. Marcus's heart started beating faster. He had hoped to have a calm conversation with Tyler, maybe scare him into leaving Keisha alone without any violence. But seeing the way the three boys were moving, like hunters stalking prey, Marcus knew this wasn't going to be a conversation. He took a deep breath and remembered what Master Chen had taught him. "Control your emotions," his teacher always said. "Fight with your mind, not your anger. Angry fighters make mistakes." Marcus circled around the building, moving quickly but quietly. He could hear voices coming from behind the school, and one of them was Keisha's. She sounded frightened and upset. Marcus crept closer, staying behind a dumpster where he couldn't be seen. What he saw made his blood boil. Tyler had cornered Keisha against the brick wall of the school building. Jake was holding his phone up, recording everything while Connor stood watch to make sure no teachers were coming. Tyler was standing too close to Keisha, one hand pressed against the wall next to her head. "Come on, don't be shy," Tyler was saying with a nasty grin. "I just want to be friends. Maybe you can show me where you live, and I can come visit sometime." "Please, leave me alone," Keisha said, her voice small and scared. "I haven't done anything to you." "You don't have to do anything," Tyler replied. "I just like you. Is that so wrong?" That's when Tyler reached out and touched Keisha's face. She jerked her head away, and Tyler laughed. "Don't be like that. I'm trying to be nice to you." Marcus saw his sister's eyes fill with tears, and something inside him snapped. All the years of training, all of Master Chen's lessons about patience and control, suddenly felt very far away. Someone was touching his little sister against her will, and that was not going to continue. Marcus stepped out from behind the dumpster. "Get away from her." His voice was quiet, but there was something in it that made all three boys turn around immediately. Tyler's cocky smile faltered when he saw Marcus standing there. He had expected to deal with a scared middle school girl, not a teenager who looked calm and dangerous at the same time. "Who are you?" Tyler asked, trying to sound tough, but Marcus could hear uncertainty in his voice. "I'm her brother," Marcus said simply, "and I'm telling you to leave her alone." Tyler looked Marcus up and down. Marcus wasn't as big as Tyler, but there was something about the way he stood, perfectly balanced and relaxed, that made Tyler hesitate. "This isn't your business," Tyler said, but he took a step away from Keisha. "We're just talking to your sister." "No, you're not," Marcus replied. "You're scaring her, and now you're going to apologize and walk away." Jake lowered his phone and looked nervously between Tyler and Marcus. Connor had already started backing toward the school building, sensing that this situation was about to get out of control. Tyler tried to regain his confidence. "Look, skinny boy, you don't want to mess with me. I've been in more fights than you can count." "I don't want to fight you," Marcus said truthfully. "I want you to leave my sister alone and never bother her again." But Tyler had a reputation to protect. In front of his friends and with his phone recording, he couldn't back down from someone smaller than him. "And what if I don't want to do that?" Tyler made his mistake then. Instead of walking away, he stepped toward Marcus with his fist raised. "Maybe I should teach you some respect." Marcus had been hoping it wouldn't come to this, but Tyler had made his choice. When Tyler swung his fist toward Marcus's face, Marcus moved like water, tilting his head just enough to let the punch pass by his ear. At the same time, he grabbed Tyler's wrist and used the bigger boy's own momentum against him. Tyler found himself flying through the air, his feet completely off the ground. He landed hard on his back in the dirt, all the air knocked out of his lungs. Before he could even understand what had happened, Marcus was kneeling beside him with one knee pressed lightly against his chest, and Tyler's arm twisted at an uncomfortable angle. "I don't want to hurt you," Marcus said quietly, so only Tyler could hear him. "But if you ever touch my sister again, if you ever even look at her wrong, I will find you. Do you understand me?" Tyler tried to struggle, but every time he moved, the pressure on his arm increased. He had never been in a position like this before, completely helpless and at someone else's mercy. Jake had dropped his phone in shock. Connor was staring with his mouth open. Neither of them had ever seen Tyler get beaten so quickly and completely. "Do you understand me?" Marcus repeated, his voice still calm but with an edge that made Tyler's blood run cold. "Yes," Tyler gasped. "Yes, I understand." Marcus helped Tyler to his feet and brushed the dirt off his shirt almost politely. "Good," he said. "Then we don't have a problem anymore." Tyler and his friends stumbled away without another word, looking back over their shoulders to make sure Marcus wasn't following them. The confrontation was over, but Marcus knew everything had changed. For a moment after Tyler and his friends ran away, Marcus and Keisha just stood there in silence. Keisha was staring at her brother like she had never seen him before. She had always known that Marcus practiced martial arts, but she had never really understood what that meant until now. Watching him handle Tyler so easily, so calmly, was like discovering her brother had superpowers. "Marcus," she said quietly, "how did you do that?" Marcus walked over to her and put his hands on her shoulders, checking to make sure she wasn't hurt. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" Keisha shook her head, but then she started crying. All the fear and stress she had been holding inside for weeks came pouring out. Marcus pulled her into a hug and let her cry against his shoulder. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," she sobbed. "I was scared you would get in trouble if you tried to help me. I thought I could handle it by myself." "You don't have to handle anything by yourself," Marcus said softly. "That's what big brothers are for. I should have noticed what was happening earlier." They walked home together, and for the first time in weeks, Keisha wasn't looking over her shoulder nervously. She felt safe again, knowing that Marcus was there to protect her. News of the confrontation spread through Jefferson Middle School, faster than wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew that Tyler Morrison had been taken down by some high school kid who turned out to be Keisha Thompson's brother. Students who had been afraid of Tyler for months suddenly felt like they could breathe again. Tyler, Jake, and Connor came to school that Wednesday looking embarrassed and defeated. Tyler had a bruise on his back from where he had hit the ground, and he walked differently, like he was afraid someone might challenge him again. The three boys avoided the area behind the school where they used to hang out, and they definitely stayed away from Keisha. But the most amazing thing was how other students started treating Keisha. Kids who had been too scared to talk to her before suddenly wanted to be her friend. They told her stories about how Tyler had bullied them too, and how grateful they were that someone had finally stood up to him. A girl named Maria Rodriguez came up to Keisha during lunch on Thursday. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" Keisha asked, confused. "For having a brother who cares about you," Maria replied. "Tyler made my life hell for 2 months last year. He used to call me names and push me around because I'm Mexican. I told my parents, but the school never did anything about it. After what happened yesterday, he won't even look at me anymore." Similar conversations happened throughout the week. A small Asian boy named David told Keisha that Tyler had been taking his lunch money for months. A girl with a learning disability named Amy said Tyler used to make fun of the way she talked. One by one, Tyler's former victims approached Keisha to thank her and share their stories. Keisha realized that Tyler hadn't just been targeting her because she was black and new to the school. He was the kind of person who enjoyed hurting anyone who seemed different or vulnerable. The confrontation with Marcus hadn't just saved her, it had saved all of Tyler's other victims too. On Friday afternoon, Principal Williams called Keisha to her office. Keisha was nervous, thinking she might be in trouble because of what Marcus had done, but Principal Williams surprised her. "I understand there was an incident earlier this week involving you and some older students," the principal said kindly. Keisha nodded, not sure how much she should say. "Several students have come forward to report that Tyler Morrison and his friends have been bullying them," Principal Williams continued. "They said you inspired them to speak up. Can you tell me what happened?" Keisha told the principal about everything Tyler had done to her over the past few weeks. She also mentioned some of the things she had witnessed him doing to other students. Principal Williams listened carefully and took notes. "I want you to know that this behavior is completely unacceptable," the principal said when Keisha finished. "Tyler and his friends will be facing serious consequences. I also want to apologize that this went on for so long without the school intervening. We clearly need to do a better job of protecting our students." Tyler Morrison was suspended for 2 weeks. When he came back, he was placed in a different lunch period and had to report to the principal's office every day after school. Jake and Connor were suspended for 1 week each. More importantly, the school implemented a new anti-bullying policy that made it easier for students to report harassment without fear of retaliation. Marcus became something of a legend at Jefferson Middle School, even though he didn't attend there. Students would point him out when he came to pick up Keisha, whispering to their friends about how he had taken down the school's biggest bully. Some of the teachers even asked to meet him. Mrs. Patterson, Keisha's science teacher, was particularly impressed. "Your brother did something very brave," she told Keisha. "But what's even more impressive is how he handled it. He didn't hurt Tyler more than necessary, and he didn't humiliate him in front of a crowd. He just solved the problem efficiently and walked away." The change in Keisha was remarkable. Her grades improved dramatically within just 2 weeks. She started participating in class discussions again and even joined the debate team. She made new friends who appreciated her intelligence and kindness, rather than seeing her as an easy target. Most importantly, she started talking about becoming a doctor again. "I want to help people who are hurting," she told Marcus one evening as they walked home from school together. "Not just physically, but emotionally too. Like how you helped me." Marcus went back to his regular routine of training at Master Chen's studio and working at the grocery store. But now other students from various schools in the neighborhood started showing up at the studio, wanting to learn martial arts from the same teacher who had trained that kid who stopped the bullies. Master Chen was proud but not surprised by what Marcus had done. "You used exactly the right amount of force," he told Marcus during their next training session. "You protected your sister and taught a bully that actions have consequences, but you didn't seriously hurt him or seek revenge. That is the true way of martial arts." The experience brought the Thompson family closer together. Their mother learned what had been happening and was both angry that Keisha had suffered and proud of how both her children had handled the situation. She made sure to have dinner together as a family more often, even with her busy work schedule. Tyler Morrison never bothered Keisha again. In fact, he seemed to go out of his way to avoid her completely. He still wasn't a nice person, but he was much more careful about who he picked on. Word had spread beyond Jefferson Middle School that Tyler had been humbled by a skinny kid who knew martial arts, and that reputation followed him for years. 6 months later, Keisha was selected to represent Jefferson Middle School at the regional science fair. As she stood on stage accepting her award for Best Biology Project, she looked out into the audience and saw Marcus cheering for her with the biggest smile on his face. She realized that having someone who truly cared about her, someone willing to protect her when she couldn't protect herself, had given her the confidence to pursue her dreams again. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stand up to make everything change for the better.